Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He's Gary Sheffield Jr. with a bag over his head because the Yankees just got their ass kicked 12-2 by historically, they are projected to be the worst team in MLB history. Before we dive into that, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, be sure to follow us on all social media below. Let's get started. Gary, I know you're probably not going to wear that the entire time, but yeah, that I felt that every meaning of having a bag over your head. I watched winless Jayhawks football. I watched a 1-15 Rams team. A lot of bad Rams teams. There are a lot of times where I was like, that bag over your head thing, I definitely think makes a lot of sense in this sense. But the Yankees, who have 70 wins, go into a game with the easiest strength of schedule moving forward. And they are one win away from taking over the AL East lead. And they lose. They don't just lose to the Grady Sizemore coached White Sox, a guy who's never won a game as a manager. They don't just they get destroyed in a game where the starting pitcher for the White Sox walked 7 Yankee batters, in a game where the Yankees had 11 total walks generated and 9 hits. I don't know.
Yeah. So let's be clear. When this game started, it seemed apparent. Obviously, Michael K wasn't there, right? We didn't get our normal broadcast.
Jake, I was missing that.
We missed the broadcast. We were talking about this game. You know what they said? This is a trap game. A trap game. Let me make sure you guys hear me through this mask. We were playing the worst team we've seen in probably 7 years. And our home broadcast was talking about this game as though it's difficult to get up against the worst teams in baseball. Let me be clear. When you look up your strength of schedule and you see bad teams on it, you should be licking your chops. Because you know what the rest of baseball does when they see horrible baseball teams? The good teams just win. And then they're ho-hum about 500 baseball against the really good teams in baseball. That's how this works, okay? So you can talk all day long about wanting to go sweep Houston, wanting to go sweep Baltimore, right? And there's a nice feel-good story to that. But let's be clear. All these teams in baseball history that win 115 games and take care of business, most of their damage, they just beat up on all the terrible teams. Remember those 100-win Yankees teams? We were winning over 100 games. Yeah, well, you know what no one talks about? What we were doing to Baltimore all those years. Since when did we call those trap games? You know what we called those? Opportunities. Gleyber Torres, remember that? The 2017 Yankees? Gleyber Torres, Aaron Judge. We called those opportunities. When did all of a sudden this turn into a trap game? And it's clear because we watched Luis Gil pitch in the first inning and they're saying, oh, yeah, it's somewhat difficult because everyone expects you to win this game. Excuse me? Did you watch the 2007 Patriots play an inferior team and say, man, I wonder if it's going to be difficult for Tom Brady and Randy Moss to get up for this football game? No. You expected a demolition, and it's exactly what you saw. Championship teams do championship things against bad teams. That's what you're supposed to do. And here we are making excuses. Everyone else in the league takes care of this team. Yankees come in and talk about it's a trap game. That's what we do. It's a joke, Jake. And there's no other way to put this other than a bona fide joke, which is why there's a bag on my head. And I know you were saying that you're expecting me to take this mask off at some point during this show. This show will probably be 35, 40 minutes. And I'm here to tell you right now, it's not coming off. I have the worst itch you've ever seen on my ear, and I'm not getting it. It's not going to happen. This Yankees team today, I'm mostly proud of this team. To be quite honest with you, I'm a huge fan of this team. I would probably say the first couple months of this show, everything was positive, right? We tried to make sure that no one thought that this was a biased show where we had a bone to pick with this staff, right? And if people needed to have their jobs called for, we always felt comfortable doing so, but we weren't going to do that until it called for that. And I'll tell you this, Jake, when you're coming up against a team like this where Grady Sizemore is managing on the other side and he's in the other dugout, okay, it's essentially a joke. Their outfield, who Who in their right mind is playing right field for the Chicago White Sox? Corey Julks? Corey Julks? And this is no disrespect. This is a player who made it into Major League Baseball. Incredibly impressive, right? We're happy for the guy.
They don't have one guy, though, with a
Brooks
league average
Baldwin?
OPS.
Brooks Baldwin. Who's that? And here's the thing. This is no disrespect. They came out and took our lunch money today. They embarrassed us. So I
Andrew
don't come into
Benintendi enjoyed that.
naive. Yeah, I don't come into these games naive thinking the Yankees are just going to take care of business and just whoop up on these teams. No, I'm essentially telling you these players who I've never heard of, they absolutely have the capability to beat the 2024 Yankees because they don't bring it every day. That's clear. The New York Yankees have built-in excuses. They want to give guys off days, move your four-hitter, right? You've got Wells. Wells one day is hit your four-hitter. The next day, you got to give him a day. You don't have a backup catcher, right? Because you're hurt. Your other catcher can't throw. Then Stanton's sitting because he can't play back-to-back days. This Yankees team comes up with more excuses than I've ever seen in my life. That's the gist of it, and it reflects on their leadership. You can have a captain of your team, and you can call Aaron Judge the best leader in baseball. That's all fine. But one player can't steer the ship. That's not the way this works. Everyone's got to be pulling the rope the same direction. And it seems like watching this Yankees team that you got guys pulling the rope different directions. Alex Verdugo today, that bunt attempt that he had, I know post game, you actually brought it up before the show, Jake, that his comments, they were asking him why he did it. He said he did it on his own. It was anemic. Why are you bunting in that situation? Why? And he said,
not only that,
I felt like doing that. Okay.
Not only that, I mean, his response after this game, they're like, "Is this a wake up call?" And he's like, "No, it's not a wake up call. It was just like one of those games, basically saying anybody can beat anybody," which I get. It's 162 games, but what did I say?
Why can't they beat anyone else?
What did I say off the air? I said, yeah, no, I agree with Verdugo. Anybody can beat anybody except for the White Sox.
Yeah, why is it that the Yankees come into this experience? Because this is an experience. It's a 3-game series, I believe. You're playing the Chicago White Sox. We played the Angels this past week.
They lost to Kai Bush, by the way, which you said you were going to literally donate your organs if they lost this game because of Kai Bush. And he had 7 walks. 7 walks. 6 hits given up. He only gave up 2 earned runs because the Yankees, early on, this looked like the Yankees were about to just boat race him. I mean, it looked like they were going to dog walk him.
We left 16 guys on base.
2 for 18 with runners in scoring position. I actually couldn't even believe that first inning. I texted you. I was like, how'd they only get 1 run in that first inning? Because
about this, Jake?
The Yankees led this game to start the game. They drew first blood, and then they proceeded to give up 4 unanswered runs.
Right.
Volpe reached on infield single. We had the Chisholm Jr. score, how he injured himself,
which was incredible, by the way. What he did, I mean, he essentially dominated the inning with his legs. And I know it's hard to talk about this because we got absolutely blitzed in this contest. I mean, it was a no contest. Jake, can I bring up something about what we just did and the disparity of talent here? Just look at, for those of you old school fans, and I know our audience tends to be a more advanced group, and we tend to care a little bit more about the back of the baseball card: batting average, home runs, driving in runs, right? Take a look at the lineup of the Chicago White Sox. 244, 219, 213, 243, 231, 221, 216, 232, 213. Okay. The Mendoza line, you guys remember the Mendoza line? No one really talks about it now because we've got a lot of Joey Gallos in baseball, but the Mendoza line was 220. If you were hitting anywhere close to 220, essentially Major League Baseball decided you were buns. You were horrible. You weren't good at this, right? You didn't get a hit enough. Essentially, we were just going to make fun of you, right? But this team, you mentioned their ops. League average ops is 700, okay? They've got one player who went 4 for 5 today to eclipse league average in terms of ops. Every single other player is hardly within 100 of league average. That means they are almost 100 points below league average. Every single other player. And we lost 12-2. We gave up 18 hits. Luis Heel, who people were saying, oh, it's a travesty, he's not at the All-Star game. He gave up, let me not cut him short here. He pitched 4 innings in a game that we desperately needed him to go length. He had an inefficient 25-pitch first inning, got shelled, gave up 4 runs in 4 innings of work, 7 hits. He struck out 3, walked 2. He was a joke today. He was a joke. And you guys can talk all day long about Marcus Stroman and what Nestor Cortez has done. They've been awful, right, of late. And obviously Stroman, he gave us something in his last start. But you guys watch this, and that's acceptable. These are the biggest games of the year. We just played the Chicago White Sox. This isn't opening a series at the beginning of the year. This is August. We are tied for first place. So now all these games are huge. So essentially what I'm telling you is we should be in playoff mode now. That's what I'm telling you. And we saw the Chicago White Sox with a bunch of dudes with a batting average. Honestly, they look like Bible verses. It's embarrassing. And no one for the Yankees is embarrassed. You know what they're going to tell you? This is what they're going to tell you. That's baseball, Susan. Anybody can beat anybody. And we happen to be.
That's what Verdugo said. And that's why people are up in arms.
You can be the bug or you can be the windshield. And we just happen to be the bug today. And that's the way the Yankees tend to look at this. They look at the macro. Who are we going to be over the course of the season? Not who are we tonight. And that's not the mentality of a champion. It's a mentality really, what is it? The mentality of a competitor? Like, it's a perennial bottom of the barrel contender.
No,
that's what it looks like to me.
I get that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm having a hard time, man. The mask is hilarious because you're talking serious and you got the mask on.
Yeah, no, I hope people understand. This is a very serious show. Yeah. We take the Yankees very seriously. And reality is that my mentality, because I'll always speak for myself. Now, people who listen to our show may agree with me, but the way I look at the Yankees, they used to have a mentality that winning was the only option, winning a championship and being the best team at the end. In the last game of the season, if you don't win that game, you failed. But as our broadcast, and I'm a huge fan of everybody at Yes, they've essentially tried to talk us into this idea that we should be grateful that we win 90-some games every year, because the Cincinnati Reds and all these teams like the Baltimore Orioles over the last decade, they've struggled. That's what they want me to believe. Like, I should just be happy that we always get to October. But we're never the last team standing. It's been 15 years, not 6. If it was 6 years, I'd be on their side. I would get it. Okay, we won a title a couple years ago. I can live with that. People who are 30 years old last saw a title when they were 15. They just got their permit. So this whole idea that the Yankees and their fan base should be thrilled because the Reds and all these teams have been rebuilding. Yeah, the Reds and the Orioles have been spending $65 million a year on their team. We spend $300 million. And also, it's not just Hal's money. It's my money. It's your money. It's the audience's money. We spend more money on this team than any other fan base, and they think our expectations should be theirs. Kick rock. They're not. All these sell the Chicago White Sox signs you see at their stadium. Yeah, but they spend no money. We have 2 players that make as much money as the whole team of the Chicago White Sox. So why would they complain at the same level we do? They shouldn't. We have different expectations. We're the New York Yankees, and clearly, Jake, this is the conclusion. No one has a championship mentality. They lose tonight, they worry about tomorrow. It's just on to the next. And if they win 2 games in a row, they're going to take it as a W and say, well, we won a series. Let's move on to the next. Like they're Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick won 4 titles before he started talking like that. He didn't say, we're on to Cincinnati when he was losing in Cleveland. So that's where we are. We're just a complacent team that, frankly, is an embarrassing organization at this point. And somebody should be held accountable. We just know that they won't.
That's fair. I thought Yes did a nice job of trying to get us to stay tuned for the post game because they would not tell us what happened to Jazz. They're like, oh yeah, you'll have to wait until the end of the game. And Meredith Morakovitz will give us that. I think Jazz is going to be okay. X-rays are negative. He feels like he's going to be okay. Banged his elbow, it looked like, on home plate when he was sliding in, which people are like, don't slide head first. Well, he's not safe if he didn't slide head first. The guy wants to win baseball games. That's what we love about Jazz Chisholm. So it sucked to see him get hurt, but it looks like they're fine. He's fine. He's trying to go tomorrow. So we'll see what ends up happening there. So I wanted to touch on that before we got into something that is going to make Gary just crack up. And that is De Los Santos. So let me just explain this. Gary's already pre-laughing. Let me just explain this for those of you who don't know. So I posted, because I watched De Los Santos, Eniel De Los Santos, the guy that they got, the random at the bell trade they made on the deadline day. And I looked at his stats while he's getting just absolutely smoked. I mean, he literally gave up 7 runs and 8 hits in 1 2/3 innings. So he actually, as a Yankee, through 6 innings pitched, has given up 13 hits, 10 earned runs, and 3 walks. He has a 15 ERA.
He's a lemon.
And so I posted that on Twitter, right? Well, you know how Twitter can be funny. I know sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is. Well, the Padres fans were celebrating and cracking up, and rightfully so. They can't even believe that the Yankees even traded for him. Do you know what they called him, Gary? Eniel De Los Meatballs.
It honestly reminds me so much of Les Miserables. Remember that movie? That's who he is. It's amazing because when we actually came into the deadline, there were so many opinions on what the Yankees should do, and people had judgment that Brian Cashman was going to do nothing. And by the way, before the deadline, I remember we were making predictions and we were saying, how many top 10 prospects can you see being traded? Because clearly, heading into the deadline, the Yankees probably needed 1 starter. Okay. They needed a starter. They needed multiple bullpen arms, right? And a closer. So you're talking about a closer, probably another setup man, a starter, a bat, which we ended up getting Chisholm, right? Which we said was a really good fit, and it has been. And then probably 1 more bat to replace Verdugo in the meantime until Jason Dominguez is ready. Okay. We did none of those things except for Jazz Chisholm. Everybody else that we signed, anyone that tells you they were expecting Leiter or De Los Meatballs, I promise you they're a liar. I guarantee you at best, and there were probably a lot of our listeners who said the Yankees are going to go diving in, the bargain bin at the very end of the bell.
And I like Mark Leiter Jr.
Save the bell with some random pickup. That's what fans probably said. And they were right. It's exactly what we did. We went and got guys who you can say, oh, I can see how this could be an impactful move down the road, but it could fail. But we took a flyer. Leiter Jr., we looked at his numbers and said, okay, well, Baseball Savant says this. So we're taking a flyer that this actually pans out into a good player. Now, De Los Santos wasn't good with the San Diego Padres. The San Diego Padres,
he led the league in home runs given up by a reliever.
Right. So why would the Padres, who are in contention this year, get rid of a reliever when they know they're going to more than likely, they're in the stretch run, the way they're playing, they're probably going to be coming out of a wild card, if not winning the division. And you think a team that's expecting to compete in October is just giving up a reliever and it's going to be an impactful guy? Why would anyone think that, let alone Brian Cashman? It is nonsensical. Okay. The Padres giving up anything to you as a contender should tell you all you need to know about a player. They're not trading a player that can help.
No, they just got Tanner Scott. So they were moving DLS essentially to create an opportunity on the roster, like a roster spot. And I mean, I'm kind of realizing I didn't like it at first. I mentioned it on the show, but Chad Green would have been so good for this team. Either him or David Robertson or both. And I think this is a good segue into what we're going to talk about with Rosario. But before we do, I just want to point out something because I already pointed it out to you. I texted you it and you're like, oh God, haha. Blake Snell's last 4 starts, which by the way, if you forgot, Gary and I, while we went back and forth, we decided at the very end, right before the trade deadline, we wanted Blake Snell. We thought that made a lot of sense. We thought
that was based on needs, right? We had no
the
Poteet,
rev up
we had
process
no
was there. Yes. So he has 27 and a third innings pitched in 4 starts. He has a .99 ERA and 45 Ks. He is absolutely on fire. Probably the hottest pitcher in the league right now, aside from Skeens, because he's just the best. But that's crazy, right? But is it crazy? Because I think we always knew Blake Snell was capable of this. He has 2 Cy Youngs. But it was a matter of he needs to get up to speed. He got hurt, all the ramp up, whatever. Now, obviously, we know it's not possible to get him, so I don't want to beat a dead horse. However, there is another shot. There is one more shot. There is one more chance for the Yankees to get a little bit better. We talked about going after Rosario. I actually predicted that they would get Rosario and Jazz Chisholm.
Okay.
So I don't know if this still counts, if they somehow end up with him. But Rosario, surprisingly, and I've asked Dodgers fans, and they don't understand it, was DFA'd by the Dodgers. It was to make room for Mookie Betts. But a lot of Dodger fans were saying, wait, hold on a second. There were other guys that you could have moved on from. Why would you cut a guy who's batting over 300? And another thing I want to point out is that the trade waivers are gone. They got rid of him. So the Yankees don't have to trade for him. He is now in waivers. So if the Yankees claim him, unfortunately, it's going to be based on the strength, the order, right, of the standings.
We'll be sitting towards the end.
They'll have the tiebreaker on just about anybody who's with them because the tiebreaker is last year's record.
Okay.
So that's cool. And that kind of gets you in front of, some contenders, but it just takes some annoying runt team that's like, I could use a 300 bat. I mean, who's to say the White Sox don't? I mean, he'd be their best player. So
they don't need him as long as they play us.
Yeah, well, exactly. So Gary, I'm going to be honest with you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You claim him. Okay. You may not get him, but we better hear that the Yankees put in a claim for Amed Rosario. They were interested in him before the season. They offered him more money than Tampa. He made a mistake. He didn't really see things through in a sense that he would have had a decent role with the Yankees. He saw it as he wasn't going to get as much playing time as he wanted. Well, he didn't get a ton with Tampa, right? Tampa trades him to the Dodgers. He's back with the Dodgers where he was the year prior. And the Dodgers DFA him just like that. So he's not reverting to AAA. He's not. He's had enough service time where he will choose to be a free agent if he's not claimed. But that contract at $1 million, he's getting claimed. So the question is, will he make it to the Yankees and will they pull the trigger? Gary, I don't know if they're going to do it. I think that they have guys in the way. I don't necessarily think if I was running the team, I would just do it. You know that. But I could see them being like, well, we have LeMahieu and Grisham and, Ben Rice. I think that they would probably, if they did it, they would knock Ben Rice down to AAA. And
how do we not?
And I'll tell you right now, I don't think you can't at this point. You're a World Series contender. You're one of the best teams in baseball, despite the fact that you just lost to the White Sox. You cannot justify not going after a guy who's hitting over 300 that instantly would make your roster better. You can't. So this is the last chance aside from guys inside the farm system, this is the last chance for the Yankees to get better. This is what we call a gift from God. You normally don't get chances like this. If he falls into your lap and you don't claim him, you failed, in my opinion. You absolutely failed. He can play the outfield. He can play the infield, right? He's hitting over 300. He can lead off. He's got decent on-base percentage. He's got speed. He can steal. It would be pathetic if we found out, and I don't know if it's tomorrow or the next day or whatever, but whenever his waivers are run, if we found out that the Yankees didn't put in a claim for him and he went to, say, the Orioles, I would be livid. I would be absolutely livid, Gary. So,
well, let me tell you this, Jake.
Yeah.
I wouldn't lean on logic. Okay.
well,
I wouldn't lean on logic. You really can't use logic at all to determine what version of the Yankees you're going to get on any given day in terms of on the field play. And then you also can't use logic when it comes to deadline play. Brian Cashman. How many different times, like how many years do we actually have to go through this process in which you're a Yankees fan, you've been a Yankees fan, you've gone through this before, and we can scream until we're blue in the face saying, well, that move, that Bryce Harper pickup seems like a no-brainer. And then the Yankees are $100 million under asking price, right? And you go, well, where was the logic there? Like, how exactly did the logic, how did you come to that decision? Oh, well, Brett Gardner. Oh, okay. Oh, that makes no sense, but okay. And then we move on. How about Manny Machado? Logic is perfect there. Like, I can see how you arrive at this decision that Manny Machado could be a fit for the Yankees. Oh, no, we don't do that because we wanted to get him on a front-loaded contract, and they weren't taking that, obviously. And so, So all of these different decisions that they've made over the years, whether it comes to free agents, the trade market, right, waiver wires, the Rule 5 draft, which they've butchered often, okay? The Yankees don't necessarily use logic. In my opinion, they use ego. And ego doesn't get you very far. It doesn't get you very far in Major League Baseball. It doesn't get you far in business. It doesn't get you far in Little League sports. It doesn't do anything. Okay. And so like, I'm really here to tell you, Jake, like, while I do think Rosario is just like can't miss pickup, I mean, he makes the Yankees better. It's part of the reason why we said he should be a fit on this team, right? Jazz Chisholm, same thing. He's a fit on this team. But there was logic to say the Yankees are clearly going to go get 2 relievers, probably multiple, right? Every single guy, we brought people on who are beat writers and reporters and well-known reporters, right? Their job is to tell us what they think the Yankees are going to do. And each and every one of them said, oh yeah, they're going to be after a bat. They're going to be after multiple arms, multiple like key contributors, and they're really trying to get better. How many of those reporters told us Leiter and De Los Meatballs? How many of those reporters said that we were going to be done after Chisholm? None of them. Not one. So that's why I hesitate to even try and offer logic when it comes to pickups on this team. They don't use it. They don't use logic when it comes to calling up prospects. How often do you need to watch Alex Verdugo go 0 for 3 with 2 walks, hitting .237 with an ops 40 points below league average? And you're going to tell me because he's a league average defender, you lean on analytics, but analytics say he's a league average defender who's a below average hitter, and all he does is hit ground balls to second base, and you mean to tell me that Jason Dominguez has no role? He's roadblocked as
he has no path.
There's
That's
no
what Brian
path.
Cashman said. No path.
Exactly what he said. So
is that funny? The day after he says that, they give up the most runs any team has given up to the Chicago White Sox this year. The White Sox,
good.
See, I want to make this clear. It's not just that they had 28 wins coming into this game. They were 28-91. When you actually say out their full record, it's just they're 18-42 at home.
Luis Hill, he's lost games before. He's 12-6, right? Good year. 3.25 ERA. You told me before that we actually went live. Does anyone see who was the winning pitcher today?
Touki
Toussaint, the player who played for the Atlanta Braves, who obviously didn't pan out.
Yeah, he was supposed to be a superstar.
He was supposed to be a star. And Touki Toussaint is beating the New York Yankees in a baseball game.
The Yankees walked 11 times. Did you know that the Yankees pitchers only walked two batters? 2. I mean, in reality, if we're being honest, if De Los Meatballs isn't in there, they only really gave up 5 runs in this game. De Los Meatballs blew the game sky high, right? But they had, I don't know if I've ever seen a game that felt like they dominated and at the same time got absolutely destroyed. Like the hitting and just getting up there at the plate and working these walks, they were doing all the right things. But that first inning was just so unlike Yankees baseball this year. Say what you will about Yankees baseball, right? But Verdugo walks, Soto walks, right? Mm-hmm. Got 2 guys on. Judge is going to double the left field. Smack one.
Yep.
Now Verdugo scores. Judge is at second. Verdugo is at third. Or excuse me. Judge is at second. Soto is at third. 1-0 Yankees. No outs.
Oh, you're talking about our 3 pop-ups in a row?
3 pop-ups in a row. Stanton, Wells, and Torres. But here's the kicker. The pop-ups were to second, third, and first. They couldn't get in the outfield. I mean, the Yankees have played a brand of baseball this year that we've actually enjoyed. They've had productive outs. We've talked about this. Mm-hmm. This is what cost them the game. If they had no outs when Stanton came to the plate. So Judge on second, Soto on third. If Stanton flies out to deep right field, Judge can go to third. Soto scores. It's 2-0.
Okay.
If Wells pops out into the outfield, Judge scores. It's now 3-0. Torres pops up. It doesn't matter. Now you have 3 runs.
No, I agree with that assessment. But, grandma had wheels. She'd be a bike. I don't even care about any of those offensive execution. Like, it was a joke, obviously, and it's upsetting. But overall, the Yankees offense has been fine over the course of the last month.
It's been great. I don't want to get on them because
Luis Gil gave up
been hitting a lot
in 4 innings of work to the worst team that we've seen.
That's
ever.
What I didn't understand.
So realistically, again, every time the Yankees lose, their starting pitcher comes out and farts down his leg for the first 3 innings of the game. It doesn't matter what our offense did. Did it really matter if Giancarlo Stanton hit a grand slam or not? It wouldn't have mattered. We gave up 12 runs. And by the way, Chicago probably scores more if we scored, because at that point, you're just letting off the gas. It was just a joke at that point. The Chicago White Sox dog walked us at the park today. That was what it was. And so that I just have a hard time caring about offensive execution in the short term when your pitcher in Luis Gil, who looked like he didn't even want to be there, after like 10 pitches of the game, it almost seemed like he was like, oh, well, I know this is the White Sox and they're fouling off pitches. I'm going to roll my eyes every time. I don't get a call. I'm going to sulk. You're good, but you're Luis Gil. Just get on the mound, right? You need to just deliver. And we're sitting here acting like I'm watching Luis Gil like he's 2001 Pedro Martinez. Get on the mound and deliver a pitch, execute a pitch. He missed location today. How many fastballs did I see him throw 2.5 feet above the strike zone? I don't care who you face. You can face Jolks Baldwin or Tony Gwynn. If the ball is 10 feet above the hitter's head, they're not chasing it. So your slider isn't going to do 2 turds. It's not going to be worth 2 turds because no one's worried about your fastball. You can't locate it. Now, he has a good fastball. He has a good slider. But it doesn't matter who you are. It's a matter of what you execute today. And he didn't execute today. So spare me with the eye roll. Spare me. You can be the best attorney in the world. If you don't show up that day, you're going to lose the case. That's the way this game works. So let's be honest here. Luis Gil probably thinks he's too good to have performances like that. And I'm here to tell you right now on this podcast, he's not. That's what I'm telling you. And I hope it turns around. I expect it to. He was very good against Chicago earlier this year. He's been very good, exceptional against much better teams, obviously. I think he's an incredibly talented kid. But you're not too good for these performances, clearly. So once I feel like I can absolutely trust you and these type of performances just hardly ever happen ever, well then at that point, now you can start rolling your eyes. You're Andy Pettit. You've pitched 2 championships, and now you get out there against a bad Baltimore team and you want to roll your eyes? Go ahead. Luis Hill doesn't have that type of track record. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's the bag is really funny.
I know it's hard. It's hard to watch me preach.
You're just like,
yeah, I want to be taken seriously, but I know how this comes across. But whatever.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, I still can't believe. I mean, I can't believe that I still think the Yankees probably could have won this game. That's what I can't believe. Now, I want to wrap this thing up with 2 things. Well, actually, it's just one thing, really. I'm going to say something that might seem contradictory to, the path that I've been on, really defending Ben Rice.
Okay.
But I'm not like a LeMahieu fan right now. I'm not. But I think he's been hitting decent lately. I've liked his at-bats, what have you. It's not even about LeMahieu, Gary. You have to send down Ben Rice. You are killing his development. You can't just say we're never going to play him against left-handed pitching. I mean, I don't care. Left-handed pitching, this isn't Chris Sale. This is Kai Bush. If you're not going to play him against Kai Bush, he needs to be in AAA playing every day. This is no different than what we said about Vivas. Why would you call him up for 3 games to completely take him out of his rhythm and essentially give him 3 days off and a front row seat?
Well, do you remember what I told you about Ben Rice? What I think they think about Ben Rice, despite what they tell you?
They're not high on him. That's what you said.
I said the Yankees have proven to me with their prospects and the way that they utilize them that they will tell you something that's not the truth. They will show you what they really think of a player. They're showing you they think he's a platoon bat. And by the way, when you think someone's a platoon bat, that's essentially you saying this player is not the future. There's no player in baseball history, not one, okay? Because there's not one player in baseball history that teams don't trust against. If it's a righty hitter, they don't trust you against a righty pitcher, lefty, and vice versa. There's not one superstar in baseball history, someone who's a franchise cornerstone, someone who's going to be there for a decade, and they don't trust you against one side. That just doesn't exist. The team will at the very least give you some slack to have an opportunity to develop in that aspect of your game. This reminds me a lot. Do you remember Jake Lamb for the Arizona Diamondbacks?
Yes.
Jake Lamb was a player who played extremely well, right? You looked at his numbers. You saw he was hitting 275. He had a ton of pop. He could hit a ball into the upper deck, played a really good third base for the Diamondbacks. And a lot of Diamondbacks fans said, why is it that he's sitting down every third day? What is it? And then it eventually hit him. They're sitting him every single time we face a lefty. And then you wonder, why is it that they're not going to put him out there against a lefty? And they were showing their hand. This player is not a franchise player. They don't see that from Ben Rice. And by the way, I don't know exactly what they're seeing because in my opinion, Ben Rice has actually had some pretty decent at-bats against some left-handed pitchers this year, especially some high-leverage guys out of the bullpen. And frankly, I guess it didn't move the Yankees to the point where they trust him. So I'm going to say
against
this.
Chris Sale, by the way.
Against Chris Sale. So if you don't trust him and they think, okay, well, that was just an anomaly. Okay. Well, then why didn't you go get somebody that you trust to not be a platoon at first base? Answer me that. And they can't give me an answer. They're just content with a Ben Rice, who's a guy who wouldn't be here if Rizzo didn't get hurt. You are going to have Rizzo and DJ LeMahieu as your platoons at first base. And instead you have Ben Rice and DJ LeMahieu at first base and Jazz Chisholm's at third base because your second baseman who leads the league in errors refuses to play anywhere else other than second base. He still can't field ground balls. This is an abomination. Okay. So I totally agree with you. If you're not going to trust Ben Rice in these situations,
it's shit
then
or
you
get
need
off
to go
the pot.
find somebody else. Yes. Go find somebody else that you do trust and then allow Ben Rice to go develop, and then trade his behind to another organization that does trust in him, somebody who actually puts value in this player. Because trading a player doesn't mean you hate him. It doesn't mean that. It means that you think something else is more valuable to your organization in the short term or long term. And the Yankees do neither. They just tend to hang on to a guy too long and then not use him in any productive way possible. So totally agree with you on Ben Rice.
And it bothers me because we already saw Austin Wells go through this spat where, he's hitting 195, whatever. And like they didn't stick with him. And we said it. And then all of a sudden Trevino gets hurt and it bails them out. And he's able to get into a rhythm because he's playing every day. It bothers me because Ben Rice, if you look at his Savant page, I mean, he's in like the 98th percentile in barrel percentage. Now, keep in mind, you don't have those exact percentages. He hasn't played enough, to be that. But you see the bar all the way to the right. And that's
he's also only platooning to be
expected.
Be clear.
So expected weighted on base average, he's at a .379, which is really good. Expected batting average, 262. He's batting 195 right now. So it would tell you very similar to Austin Wells. Like I brought up before, he's been unlucky. He's been an unlucky hitter. Expected slugging, 537. He's slugging 406. Average exit velocity, 91.1. That's very good. Barrel percentage, 18.5. That's really good. Barrel percentage means 18.5% of the time he is hitting the ball. The ball is coming off the bat at 95 or more.
It's pretty good.
Very good. So that's the thing. Sweet spot percentage, launch angle sweet spot percentage is 39.1, which is really good. So the chase percentage is 19.5 and walk percentage is 12.7. He's generating good at bats. He walks. He doesn't chase. He has a good launch angle. He can hit home runs. He could also put the bat on the ball. And the reality is he's had a lot of hard contact that has gone right at guys. And that's what happens. And eventually that stuff starts to go in your favor because you can't be unlucky for your entire career. The thing that bothers me, though, is that while he has all these things, he has 7 home runs. So he's shown he's got a decent amount of power. And he's only had 128 at-bats, Gary.
Yeah, no, I know. I totally get what you're saying. But let's be clear. The Yankees know there's 48 games left in the season. Actually, less than that. It's about 45 games.
Yeah.
So the Yankees feel like there's just too much pressure on them. They're just going to platoon. They don't feel like we're not going to prioritize the development of a young player who, frankly, like I said, I don't think they believe in him long term. So I think they're just going to use Ben Rice in the short term for what they think they can trust him to do right now. They cannot possibly risk developing him and having him go 0 for 13 in a series against a couple lefties. They feel like they're best off just letting DJ LeMahieu, who, to be clear, he is swinging a hotter bat, especially against lefties. He's platooning. So that's what's happening. Okay. The Yankees have backed themselves into a corner where they've played themselves. To be honest with you, if they did their job, we'd be nursing a 5 or 6 game lead in this division. Baltimore played awful for a month and a half. Absolutely. And you might be able to afford to throw Ben Rice against a lefty for multiple times in a series and go towards development. But the Yankees have backed themselves into a corner where you're losing games in series against the Blue Jays, the Angels. Now you're losing a game 1 against Chicago White Sox, the worst team we've ever seen. So it's hard to prioritize development when you're losing games against teams you shouldn't lose to. It puts you in a situation where now we've got to send down Ben Rice, who's hitting the ball really hard, right? Instead of prioritizing his development and maybe helping us down the road. We really can't do that. So that's part of the reason why I said, if you're going to play yourself into this situation, you need to go get somebody who's been there, done it, because you've kind of earned this position. You don't have the luxury. You don't have the luxury of giving Ben Rice the leash that he needs. So is what it is.
Yeah, and I do think also, if you do, and again, I don't love this, but again, I'm adjusting to the information that's being fed to us, right? That's really what it is. I'm not flip-flopping. I still believe he should be in the lineup every day. I believe that. But the way he's being played, only against right-handed pitching, and they keep seeing lefties, all I'm seeing is, what everyone else is seeing. Ben Rice isn't getting opportunities, and he's wasting away on the bench. And to me, I think at that point, not to say AAA is the end all be all and everything about AAA matters, but they traded away. They traded away, Agustin Ramirez, and Carlos Narvaez is in the big leagues, and so they actually, I think it's JC Ascara. I might have butchered his name. They need a catcher, so I think sending Ben Rice down makes sense. And then I think there you go. Get Amed Rosario.
Rosario would be good. Yeah.
Get Rosario and let Ben Rice have, reps in AAA because you're wasting him away. But anyway, that's going to do it for us. We appreciate you guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Be sure to follow us on all social media. And Gary, I'm gonna take the wheel on this one because I want the worst movie possible.
Yeah, I can't think of one. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
I am going to say Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Dead. Just put Freddy's Dead in the comment section. Dead. It was made by a 23-year-old director, had no idea what he was doing.
Perfect.
So put it in the comment section. Freddy's Dead if you got to this point. Awful, awful, awful. And that's gonna do it.
Yep. And like this video.